Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Danny Gillette. And we're back here on this Wednesday morning to discuss a new roster addition for Nebraska football. They've added a punter, or they will be, looks to be adding a punter here soon, so that will kind of finalize the roster. So we'll touch on that. We'll look at the incredible run by Nebraska baseball last weekend, winning the Big Ten tournament, and then we will look ahead to what's on schedule or what's on tap this weekend for the baseball team in the Chapel Hill regional, and then we'll also delve into some recruiting nuggets. So before we get into all that, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, make sure that you guys get into the comment section. And Danny, how you doing on this Wednesday morning?
I'm doing okay. I'm enjoying the nicer weather around here, and perfect baseball weather. We're on the eve of summer camp and closer to football season, so things are looking up. I just hope the rain stays away, because that's all it's done around here. I don't know about in your neck of the woods.
It's been more sunshine here, so yeah,
There you
getting
go.
into the summer. But yeah, it was a good time, I guess, for Nebraska baseball last weekend. It was our first show since they went on their run. We with Labor Memorial Day and everything. But yeah, an impressive run by Will Bolton Company. We talked about it and how they needed to kind of tap into the magic of Omaha, and they were able to do that, winning 4 straight games. We talked about their big win against Michigan State, against Tuesday. On last Tuesday they got the fortuitous bounce, and then they really just handled business against Oregon, Penn State, UCLA. They beat 2 ranked teams in 3 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, this team, going into the regional as the number 3 seed. I think they were a 2 seed last year. I can't quite remember. Not that it really matters, at the end of the day. You just have to get through this 4-team tournament, which also includes, 5th ranked North Carolina, and then also Holy Cross. So that action is going to get underway for Nebraska on Friday, May 30th. There'll be 5 Eastern. It's going to be on ESPN Plus, Nebraska versus Oklahoma. The other game looks like it'll be North Carolina and Holy Cross will be on the ACC network. And then it just kind of depends, where things go from there. If the Huskers win, they would be playing Saturday at like 6 p.m. Eastern. If they lose, they would play Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So it's a little bit different than softball in that they kind of it's like it's expanded out a little bit more, so that if possible, I think it could go into Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. I guess Monday if there is another game that needs to be played, which I think is a little bit different than softball, but I think that's just due to the pitching. They try to stretch it out a little bit more.
It's really cool that Holy Cross is going to play North Carolina, because in college I went to a ton of Holy Cross baseball games. They'll probably get obliterated, but it's good that Holy Cross is being represented in the tournament like this. But we talked about tapping into the magic of last year, and I got heat for this and was told I was trying to stir up controversy. But imagine if they won more of the midweek games, and then we'd be in a much better position. But it doesn't matter at this point now. Will Bolton and company have shown that they can turn it on come the postseason, and the postseason is when the coaches make their money, and Will Bolt has made his money the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he's been criticized a lot, but winning another Big Ten championship, and definitely for this one, it's not like your normal Big Ten where it's a kind of a weak baseball conference. They had to beat the number 4 team in the country with their best pitcher on the mound, and they did that. And then they also beat, with the Michigan State kid, probably the best pitcher in the conference, a really good UCLA team. So they did some great work, and I know it's not like you want to look ahead to next season.
Yeah.
This season's still, there's still a lot to happen here. But I mean, man, when you can look at what the pitching rotation can look like next year with Mason McConaughey and with Ty Horn and Tucker Timmerman. I mean, Horn and Timmerman are both sophomores and, pitching really well. I mean, Ty Horn, went 8 shutout innings on Saturday or Sunday, in the championship game. Timmerman didn't have as good of a start against Penn State, only went like 4 innings. But, if you think about, if he's your number 3 starter next year, I mean, I think Nebraska can feel pretty good about that. I think the program, is really in a great spot. I mean, going into next season, there's obviously, going to be some guys leaving. But yeah, I think that Will Bolt has really got this thing going. I mean, they're hitting the ball really well. And if they can get, more consistency in the pitching, I do think that they're a dangerous team. I do think they're not a team that, teams want to see right now. And Oklahoma's a very solid team. I believe they actually finished under 500 in the SEC, but I mean, the SEC is so loaded. I think
Yeah.
the top 5 seeds in the tournament maybe are the top 4 seeds. I think North Carolina is the top non-SEC seed in this tournament. So it's, it really is, kind of they run the world. The ACC, I think the ACC and the SEC have like 10 of these seeds this weekend, so or they're hosting 10 of these regionals. That might be slightly off, but there's not. You look at Auburn's number 4. Vanderbilt's obviously number 1. Nebraska beat Vanderbilt, just to throw that out there, but Texas number 2. So there's a lot of really, really powerful teams in the SEC. Arkansas, Tennessee. We saw Florida last year, so I mean, Oklahoma is going to be a big challenge. They won a couple of games in the SEC tournament. I think their RPI is like 26. They do have Kyson Witherspoon, a very strong pitcher, who I'm sure we'll see on Friday. He's 10-3 on the season, in 15 starts, 2.47 ERA. But their other starters, just kind of home guys. I mean, not spectacular. Malachi Witherspoon with the 5.5 ERA, Cade Crossland 7.04. So they've got a lot of solid, I would say, pitching depth though. They've got a lot of guys that they can throw in there in the bullpen. And offensively, they've got 2 guys that hit over over 300. But again, the SEC is a much different conference than the Big Ten. So, you're probably facing, much more challenging pitching and all that type of stuff. So it's going to be a battle. And, hopefully they can get some great efforts from their starting pitching, because I remember last year against Florida, it just didn't really work out. They had that offensive player, and I think they ended up they went to the College World Series, I think.
Yeah, Florida was a monster last year, so I kind of hesitate to judge a little bit when we face Florida because they were a monster. But I mean, you talked about players coming back next year, and not to look too far ahead for next year. But one of the guys that's coming back, who will be a senior next year, is Dylan Carey, and he's been a huge part of 2 deep postseason runs, 2 consecutive years, and I think that will help the program. But yeah, just to kind of think back on last year, that Florida team was absolutely loaded. I think they had like 2 or 3 really, really good hitters, and then their pitching, as I recall, wasn't the best. But when you have an offense like that, you don't need to be on top of your game every single day.
Yeah, they had I can't remember what the kid's name was, but I believe he was a first-round pick. But he went off, and but it does show that a number 3 seed can make a run in this tournament.
Yep.
You have to get past this first weekend of games, as we saw with the softball team. I mean, they were a number 2 seed in their region, and they ended up 1 pitch away. I mean, really, they lost 2 one-run games to Tennessee in the Super Regional. So you have to survive this first weekend, and then it's a best of 3 series against one team. And I'm not saying like I expect Nebraska to get past this weekend, like that's not my expectation. But if they do, if they somehow find a way, like I would watch out for this team, because if the pitching can be consistently good, this offense is really swinging the bat well. And give credit to Will Bolt for that. They always seem to find a way to do that. And I know it's frustrating that they have lost a lot of midweek games, but they have also won. In addition to this Big Ten tournament, they've won 5 consecutive Big Ten series before this. They also won a series against Oregon State. They beat Tennessee. They beat Vanderbilt. Tennessee was in softball. But they've beaten some really good teams this year. So they do have the potential to make a run. But this first game, obviously, I think is the most important one, just to get things started in the right direction.
And I think the Fire Bolt crowd can take a seat for now. I know I heard it all season, Fire Bolt and blah, blah, blah. But these past couple of weeks, have really reaffirmed that he's the right guy for the job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they've won back-to-back Big Ten championships, 3. I think they've won, a couple of tournaments, another Big Ten title within his 5 or 6 years. So program's headed in the right direction. And, you had a lot of people calling for, Ronda Revelle too. I mean, it's just some people, they aren't happy in the morning unless they're calling for somebody to get fired. And I'm not saying that I never do that. And sometimes
That's
it is justified.
The Nebraska way. I mean, they're just following suit. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes it is justified, but definitely not. Definitely not with Will Bolt. And I didn't think even if they didn't win the Big Ten tournament, I mean, I thought I was fine with him going into the season. And then, Ronda Revelle, I think softball did a great job. They need to, try to add some reinforcements, in the transfer portal, but they just ran into a really great team. And
they did. It was a very good team. Very good pitcher too. I forget her name, but
Carlin Pickens. So yeah,
There we
she
go.
was incredible. She did a great job, and she just got the best of Jordy in that game. I mean, honestly, that's just Jordy didn't have a great series. I would say offensively against Tennessee, and not that, and I think that's part of it too. Like Carolyn Pickens isn't having
Yeah.
to go up there and carry the offense too. So that's part of where Nebraska needs to get some more, I think, offensive firepower. They could use a little more pitching depth where it'd be nice if they had and Tennessee never went to her, but they do have another pitcher that it was really good. That was one of the best pitchers in the SEC. So it'd be nice to see Nebraska have some other depth to maybe take some of the pressure off Jordy. But yeah, I thought it was pretty perfect the way that after the game Jordy said, like, let it burn, as long as it can or as hard as it can, whatever she said. Watch the other team celebrate, know what it feels like. And this is going to be a very motivated Nebraska softball team coming back next season. So I can't wait for Nebraska softball in 2026.
And I can't wait for baseball either. I know the season's not over yet, but when you look at the future of this program, I think they're in the right direction. And I was happy I was able to watch some of these games on TV this weekend, so that was cool. But it was really kind of fascinating to see them beat UCLA, because I always view them, and rightfully so, and they are, as one of the best teams in the country. And Nebraska was able to take them on and beat them. And to me, that really speaks to how deep this Nebraska team is. And you talk about maybe a lack of depth for softball, but I mean, Nebraska baseball is absolutely loaded at several positions. Now, obviously, that will change with people graduating and stuff next year, but I really like the way, like you kind of mentioned, how this team forms for next year.
Yeah, and especially with this pitching, the pitching staff could be really good under Coach Childress there. So that would be a positive. Going to lose Gabe Swanson, which is going to be a bummer. Yeah. He had another great run, 2 home runs in the Big Ten tournament. But like you mentioned, Dylan Carey was spectacular. Devin Nunes hit that home run, and it was right there. It was kind of like, okay, this is going to be our day. When he hit that home run, there were some worrisome moments though. But Ty Horn, man, he really did a spectacular job. So it'll be interesting to see who gets the start on Friday night. Is it going to be Ty Horn? Is it going to be Timmerman? So that'll be an interesting decision from Will Bolt. I would probably go with Ty Horn, honestly, but I think that would be 4 days. So it'd be Monday. I guess that wouldn't be quite the full rest. So we'll see. That'll be a decision.
Timmerman just for that rest.
Yeah, and then you got Ty Horn. If you can beat those guys, then you'd have Ty Horn against theoretically North Carolina on Saturday. And really, those first 2 games are the most important, because if you're that team that gets to the championship undefeated, then somebody has to beat you twice, and that's a good place to be. That's where Nebraska. That's kind of how Nebraska softball advanced. I know Southeast Louisiana knocked out LSU, but still LSU on that Sunday would have had to beat Nebraska twice. So that's the position you want to be in. You definitely don't want to have to go and beat North Carolina twice on its home field on Sunday. So winning these first 2 games critical if you want to advance.
And it's interesting. Will Bolt teams have kind of always started slow, but they're in it at the end. And I remember 2020 when the season initially started, and then COVID happened. They were slow, but they looked to be coming on, and then obviously everything got shut down. But both teams always start slow, but they always find their groove, late May and beginning of June and during tournament time. So, I mean, for everybody calling for Will Bolt to be gone, I guess just wait till the end of May and see what happens then. But either way, it's working. It's working, and yeah, I think this baseball program is a really good spot, and I think the softball program is too. Like you said, some more depth pieces would be great. But Jordy Ball, again, fantastic season and incredible to watch.
All right, so Nebraska will start their run on Friday against Oklahoma, like we mentioned. So follow up with that, and let's switch over to Nebraska football. So in the spring, we had the punter Jack McAllister entered the transfer portal. That was kind of a surprise. We found out why, because Mike Eckler prefers a rugby-style, Australian rules type of punter. And so on Friday, Lord, I am messed up here. Tuesday night, we had Sean Callahan reported that Nebraska has added at least Australian rugby-style punter Archie Wilson has added him for an official visit this weekend. He's been added to the to the student register, so it sounds like this is going to be a done deal. Matt Rule mentioned it, and it's interesting because he comes from the same college where Mike Eckler was able to recruit Jackson Ross, who is the current Tennessee punter. He had a lot of success with that style of punting. So I don't know. Not that we don't know much about Archie Wilson here. It's not like there's a lot of stats or anything about it. But what do you think about Nebraska adding him as their potential starting punter this season?
First off, I love Australian punters. Just the way they kick, and they always seem to be very technically trained, and they always seem to be well trained. Like I remember Lou Headley for Miami. He was a very solid punter for them for several seasons, and he came from Australia. And and I think Wilson came from Pro Kick Australia, which is kind of like a pipeline, kind of development place for Australian punters. And and I think he is going to be a really good addition, and he fits exactly what Eckler wants. So that's also a bonus, and I think this is a really, really good addition. Like I said, I love Australian punters due to how seasoned they are and how familiar they are with the kind of, style of punting. And I think, I think he'll be a really good addition, and he'll definitely challenge Camden Coke.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it works out. I mean, I've been trying to kind of find stuff, on him. There's not really a lot. He does. So it's from Haleybury College is what the school that he goes to, and that's also where, like I said, he got Jackson Ross. So it seems like there's definitely some ties there. I'm sure that Mike Eckler's scouted him well. Some other Husker. I would say some other like reporters in the Husker scene have kind of been hinting at this. So I don't think this has been like a super secret or something. It's people have kind of known about it. It's just kind of getting the ducks in a row. And yeah, I mean, you look at like Mike Eckler, his first year when he went on the job at Tennessee. I mean, they averaged giving up like 2 yards per game punt returns. I mean, like they just do not give up punt return yardage. When he was at Tennessee, and using this punting style is how they've been able to do that. And essentially what it does is it allows your punter, I mean, this why some coaches like it is it allows your punter to kind of do that rollout thing. And then your coverage team, they can leave on the snap. So, those guys, as your punter's buying a little bit of extra time, it allows your coverage team to get down there and cover the kick a little bit more. So that's why they kind of prefer this rugby style punt. And then the bouncing aspect of it too. It's tough to catch. And then if you don't catch it, it tends to roll the other way. So, I mean, we've seen that. How many times have we seen Nebraska where the guy's not caught the punt and we lose a ton of yards? It's happened quite a few times.
Well, I was thinking, how many times could we have used a rollout punter in order to save his own life from being blocked 65 times a game? So, yeah, I mean, there's that too.
Poor Brian Buschini got beat up as the punter, which is pretty rare. I mean, I'm not saying that's just not, usually you're used to your quarterback getting beat up, but how many times are like, man, the punter's taking a beating today?
However, how many times have you seen a punter throw a pass for a completion? So there you go.
That's true. Yeah, Brian.
It was weird all around, but I don't know. Brian Buschini, he got more hits than Raiola sometimes. But no, I think this is a really smart style. I've always kind of loved the rugby style just because it affords the punter, I think a little more flexibility to place his kick and relies on the roll, like you said, to make it confusing for returners. So I'm all for this new style. I'm sorry McAllister had to leave, and I know it was a tough situation for him because he just transferred in, but I think this is a smart direction for the program moving forward.
Excuse me, I sneezed there. Yeah, I think it's a good move, and Mike Eckler, he's just a proven special teams coach. So just give him the tools that he wants to, whatever pieces he wants to add to the toolkit, just let him do it. He's got the experience, and I think that is one of the things. You look at him and the other coordinators. I think those are the 3 new coordinators are one of the reasons I'm really excited about the upside of this football team going into 2025. So,
yeah, I'm very excited to see what Holgerson can do with a full year because I think this offense can be really, really good. And I love Da'Keel Shorts. I'm happy that EJ Barthel is coming back. I know some weren't, but I think continuity is a good thing, and I'm just excited for the season to start. I think there's a lot of interesting storylines, not only for Nebraska but in the Big Ten as well. And when you look at the schedule, people are predicting. I said 9-3, but I would be happy with 10-2, 8-4, 7-5 maybe. But I'm excited. I really believe that this team has the potential to make some noise.
Yeah, I can't believe I just did a prediction. I think I predicted 9 wins, maybe 10 though. I can't remember, but I think I said 9. I think there's some road games that are going to be a little more difficult. Those back-to-back games against Maryland and Minnesota, I think, are going to be a little challenging. But yeah, this team has all the tools with the offense, the quarterback, the running game, offensive line. I think they have all the tools to really compete for. I would say a playoff spot. I don't think they're there to compete for the Big Ten championship, but maybe if you beat Penn State on the road, then anything's possible. So, and like I said in my game by game predictions, like the thing about the Big Ten anymore in this new era of college football is like it is every season. I think is going to be very difficult, the schedule. I mean, I know there's going to be sometimes when it looks easier than it is, but like this season, I think the schedule. I
Yeah.
mean, like USC, I think could be better than we think they're going to be, and I think UCLA could be better than we think they're going to be. So, some of those games that of teams that were like 6-6 a year ago, that doesn't mean they're going to be 6-6 this year. And you also have to look at the other thing is like USC had to play a really hard schedule last season. Like they actually weren't that bad of a team. They just had a really difficult schedule. And
And they
so,
also had to figure out their quarterback towards the end of the year, and
right.
that kind of complicated things too. So now that they have Isaiah and they have him figured out, watch out.
And I think you see like even a team like Oklahoma that was 6-6 last year. So I mean, I think you need to be cautious about saying like, oh, the schedule's not that tough. We don't have that many ranked teams from last year. I think it's just going to be difficult every year. And I think, the difference between going 6-6 and 10-2, can be a sliver. I mean, we've seen that
Yeah.
Nebraska and Illinois last season could have completely been switched. I mean, they could have had two completely different seasons. Illinois was able to win a few of those close games, especially the one in Nebraska. But if Nebraska could have beat Illinois and finished things off against Ohio State, they would have had a very legitimate chance of making the playoff. And if they make a field goal against Iowa and Isaiah Nair doesn't drop it, there's literally 3 to 5 plays. But I mean, and I know I've said this a million times, but 3 to 5 plays, and this team probably is in the college football playoff. Now, on the same token, you could flip it the other way. And, if there's a few plays that don't go, the other way, maybe they miss a bowl game. So I
I'm
guess my
looking at the
point
Purdue
is,
game, honestly, as one of those types of games because there was
yeah,
a very, very good chance that they could have lost that game. And yeah, they turned it out at the end and made it not so close, but Purdue hung in there.
yeah. And Rutgers too. I mean, that
Yeah.
Rutgers, they won 14-7 or whatever, but that was one where they, hung on by the, the skin of their teeth. So, while I expect 10 wins this season, don't be shocked too if they're sitting there in November, fighting for win number 6. Like I just feel like in this new era of college football, the margin for error isn't very big. So, it could be, there's not a huge difference between teams that are winning 9 and 10 games and teams that are winning 6 and 7. And getting a new special teams coach, I think is going to help a lot in that regard. Having a better quarterback, having offensive coordinator that's more experienced, all those little things are really, I think, going to matter. So, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. I do want to get to some recruiting stuff before we get, to the end of the show. It is interesting. We haven't talked about this much, but Nebraska is going to have the big 7-on-7
I'm
event here
excited, yeah.
coming up.
Mm-hmm.
The Battle of the Boneyard. So 16 of the top 7-on-7 teams from across the country will be competing in Lincoln next week, which I think is a great event for Nebraska, a great idea. I think they need to make this more consistent. But you look, there's over 50 4-star recruits, according to On3, that are going to be on campus. Not a lot of them are really in Nebraska's purview. I guess they're not really, in it with a lot of these guys, but I think there's a couple out there. Devin Jackson's one, Danny Odom, they're going to be here, so that would be nice to capitalize on that.
Yeah, you know what? In today's day and age, they could not be in with some of these recruits one day, and then the next thing you know, they're committed. So who knows?
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think just to me, I think this is something that they can kind of try to establish and move forward in the future and try to build things. I don't know that we're going to see a ton of impact like in the 2026
No,
class from this.
no, I don't think so. I'm thinking maybe 2027, 2028 because Trey Taylor is also coming, this weekend. So I'm sure he'll be doing recruiting. He's been doing a lot of recruiting on social media and things like that, and I'm sure behind the scenes as well. So it's good to see.
Yeah, Trey Taylor. So he's going to be visiting June 1st, and he's coming for a camp too. So it's not just so he's going to be here for like a camp and going to be obviously doing a bunch of recruiting. Official visits will start up for the 2026 class. I mean, I think they can start this weekend, but I don't know that Nebraska has any on tap, not according to On3 anyway, except we talked about Archie Wilson. So there will be some guys. I think Dayton Rayola is going to be on campus too, coming up here soon. But June 6th is going to be a huge weekend. Like Kevin Obot, CJ Brona, Brian Bonner, Cameron Wilson, the guy they're trying to flip from Syracuse.
I think they have a good shot with Wilson, but that's just my opinion.
Ryan Moret, Hayden Ainsworth, a couple of big offensive linemen, Rex Waterman. So I think they've got a good shot there. I'm really interested in Brian Bonner. I feel like he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit, but he's 6'1", 185, 106 overall. I'm in the class as the number 7th ranked running back, and they're right. It's the teams in the mix are UCLA, Washington, Nebraska, Penn State. Like I feel like they're right there. And if they could find a way, to get this done, those 4 schools I mentioned are all getting official visits, but Nebraska is getting the second to last one. Penn State's getting the last one. This kid's from California, so I don't know. UCLA probably in the mix, but if they could find a way to get Brian Bonner, I feel like that would be a massive commitment and one of the types of running backs that, like as fans, we've been hoping that they can get, like a true impact guy who can, be like an all Big Ten caliber running back.
Yeah, and you almost kind of wonder if a guy like Bonner would be able to play right away for Nebraska. But when I look at these visitors, Wilson, Barrett, obviously a lot of Florida guys, and Wilson's a guy that, like I said, I feel very comfortable with, Nebraska landing. Like I could definitely see that. But Barrett is definitely interesting, and he's a big guy, can get leverage. He's a very good player. I know Miami's after him hard, and but I think that Nebraska has a good shot there too, because Phil Simpson has been really, really active in this recruitment since, let's see, January. I'm looking at the calendar now, January. So I feel really good about a lot of these guys, and I think this coaching staff and the new additions on the coaching staff have done a solid job recruiting.
I did want to mention because we did the show last week and I've been gone for a little bit, so we haven't been as regular. We'll get back to our 3 episodes a week starting next week. But since just to cover a few things that we've probably missed, Camden Jensen, one of the top targets on the board at tight end, 4-star, committed to UCLA. That happened last week, I believe, May 18th. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit past, but I wanted to mention it because I think tight end is it's getting a little interesting, and there is another guy that emerged, Lincoln Watkins, and he's an interesting guy. Michigan took 2 tight ends last week. He was kind of on their radar. He's 10th in the state of Michigan, but he's now down to 2 schools, Nebraska and Florida. That's where he's taking his 2 official visits to, and I feel like that this will be a good chance for Nebraska to kind of lock down this recruitment. So Indiana was also in the mix. They've been eliminated. They're not getting an official visit. He's ranked 465 overall. And yeah, in terms of tight ends in the 2026 class, with Luke Sorensen's out there, but Penn State's kind of emerged as a favorite there with the crystal ball projection. So it seems like Lincoln Watkins is kind of not a must-land target, but becoming pretty important in terms of Nebraska getting a tight end that they want in the 2026 class.
I agree. Like you said, it will be interesting to see how it shapes up. Watkins is a very solid receiver, big kid. I feel good about where Nebraska stands with Watkins as well. And I'm not going to say, like you said, I'm not going to say it's a must land, but it would be a needed get. I feel like with the transfer portal today, the concept of must land is a little bit more cloudy. Like you don't need to must land anybody when you can go write him a check and go into the transfer portal. But I do think the depth at tight end for the future is kind of a little bit cloudy. I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel like there's not a ton of depth there moving forward.
I mean, Carter Nelson's definitely going to have to, play a prominent role there. I mean, he's going to have to be
Right.
a Big Ten player. So, yeah, if he doesn't pan out, then yeah, I think you are looking at a bit of an issue there at tight end. But I do really like this Lincoln Watkins kid. I don't
Yeah.
know what happened exactly with Matt Ludwig. I mean, he ended up going to Michigan, and Nebraska had a crystal ball at some point. He was like visiting it. He made a couple of visits. So, I mean, I did have high hopes for that recruitment. I'm not sure if it was a money deal. I don't think it was that, because he ended up going to Michigan right now, and Michigan's not really guaranteeing NIL deals, and Texas Tech was on the board. So like, if you wanted to be about money, I guarantee you Texas Tech was the biggest offer out there, because they just always are. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there.
Do you think it
And
was
I
an
mean,
offensive style kind of change with Holgerson versus Satterfield? Because I feel like Holgerson's going to favor the wide receivers a little bit more.
Could be. And Michigan has had a lot more tight ends drafted, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Right.
they did just have the Loveland kid drafted, and he's like from Idaho, and Ludwig's from Montana. So I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, but
True. That could
um,
be it. Yeah.
but more than the tight ends, I guess the other recruitment I wanted to mention that I found was surprising is that last week Titan Davis released his top 4 and changed his official visit schedule in Nebraska, which I thought was right near the top, and out of nowhere basically got eliminated. So that's a couple of recruitments it seemed like that's happened with. I mean, that's going to happen, but that one was a little bit surprising to me. And of all the guys that have kind of come off the board recently, I would say that's the one that gave me the most heartburn.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting, but at the same time, you saw a flurry of offers in Florida and Alabama and stuff like that go out last week. So I'm wondering if there's a connection between that, because they offered a really good linebacker from Florida. I forget his name. I should show prep before we do this a little bit more. But no, the Terry Braden, Phil Simpson, and I know a couple of the other coaches were working hard in Alabama and Florida last week. I don't know if you saw that, but it makes you wonder if there's a correlation there.
Yeah, one name to know, JJ Finch, is a guy he's from Indiana, but he was offered 6'3", 260, 444th overall in the On3 industry rankings. Is talking about getting an official visit set up for June. So that was a guy that was just offered. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. You're gonna have guys come and go on the board. I feel like they still got things set up pretty well, especially I'd love to see them land some of these offensive tackles that they're bringing in here, Claude
Yeah.
Mpua or Kelvin Abbott or, Rex Waterman. I'd love to see him get like a couple of those guys. But yeah, Dayton Rayola's coming in for a visit, and I just don't think this class is going to be that big. So I think on the recruiting side, like I would temper my expectations a little bit. I think Nebraska is going to be focused like more quantity over quality, or excuse me, quality over quantity. Excuse me. And so I really don't think that I see them going over 20. But I think they will have a busy June and July, and we'll kind of finish things off in the fall. But overall, I think they're in a good spot. I don't think they're going to land. I don't see this being like a top 20, top 15 class, but I think it's going to be a solid class when it's all said and done.
If anything, I think you're going to see maybe a top 15, top 20 class 2027, 2028.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
like you said, I don't think we're going to see a lot in 2026 because Matt Rule has adjusted to the transfer portal, and it's worked out okay for them. But just by and large, the transfer portal is where you can get ready players, develop players ready to plug and play. And when you look at that, and you look at the success of transfer portal teams like Ohio State, they went into the transfer portal heavy, and they won the national championship. So I think there's a certain formula where you don't want to wait for kids to develop anymore for a couple reasons. One, you got to win now, especially in a Big Ten that's so competitive. Two, kids are going to leave anyway if they, get noticed by other schools. So you don't want to take the risk of just keeping them on the bench. And then, three, you have a kind of a scenario where you go into the transfer portal, you can get what you need, and then you can also keep those kids for multiple years. So it has taken a little bit of a kind of dent in high school recruiting, but I think that's just the way things are now.
It is weird, and it's like going down to the smaller colleges, because now the smaller colleges are just getting more drop down transfers as opposed to high school players. So it literally is like the worst time ever to be a high school football or basketball or even
Yeah,
baseball,
yeah,
because teams are prioritizing the portal. And then yeah, even the smaller colleges, which used to be more of the fallback, they're having more college options now, because guys are going into the portal and not finding anywhere. So then the D3 and the D2 and the NAIA teams are like, hell yeah, we're getting college experienced players, as opposed to these high school kids that we're usually having to develop and a lot of times take a chance on, right? Because
yeah,
it's like you obviously, like high school recruiting, it's a lot like the NFL draft. I mean, it's just a kind of a crapshoot in that you're trying to project what that player is going to be, because like in a lot of times it really doesn't. You see a lot of guys that'll play like quarterback in high school because they're the best athlete on their team, then they'll play defensive back in college. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of it is about projecting what you're going to be in college from a high school player, and that can be difficult to do sometimes. So you can see why teams are more willing to say, hey, I've seen this guy play, whether it's at the FCS or a group of five level. That to me is more reliable than what I could see from a high school tape. So I think that's why, teams are willing to do that. But if you look at this 2026 class, I mean, before I got on that tangent there, you've got, 27, 28 visitors over the next month coming in for official visits. I mean, that's the top of the board right now. And as long as Nebraska can close on a decent percentage of those guys, they're going to have, I think a top 25 class. I think that's very
yeah.
realistic.
Mhm.
Top 15, probably not, but we'll see. I mean, a lot of things can change, but, as long as they can land some of these offensive tackles, running backs, receivers, some of these defensive guys, like I think they're in a good spot. And one thing we've seen with Matt Rule is that when they get guys on campus, they are very good at closing. So I would expect them to close commitments out on probably at least half of those guys visiting. So if they do that, that's the entire 2026 class right there.
Yeah, when you look at, like you said, the state of recruiting now, it's very interesting because I see a lot of talented players get dropped down to D2 and D3, and they look like Michael Jordan playing against, I don't know, the Looney Tunes. But I think with this in relation to the 2026 class for Nebraska, I think they have an opportunity to build in 2027 and 2028 with Trey Taylor. So I think you're going to see a lot of, like you said, a lot of efforts being pushed towards there. And, with these past couple classes, they had Dylan Raiola, but Raiola never got a chance to build. And so I think you're seeing, a lot of really, really good players coming into the program, but now you have an opportunity to kind of reshape your future post Raiola. And I think they recognize that, and they have an opportunity to do that here with Taylor.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to have him on campus and being such an active recruiter. So yeah, the
Yeah.
2027 class I think is going to be a chance to be Matt Rule's best class at Nebraska, honestly. So if we can pair Trey Taylor with some winning on the field, I think there'll be a lot of fireworks for Nebraska in the future. So hopefully there'll be some fireworks in the batter's box this weekend for Nebraska, hitting some home runs. I'd love to see Gabe Swanson hit a couple out there in Chapel Hill. Maybe Bill Belichick will be in attendance with Jordan Hudson. Who knows, man? Maybe she'll be running the tournament. Like, who knows?
Do you think she'll allow Bill to come, or do you think she'll tell him to
I
stay home?
mean, she'll probably tell him to come, but I'm sure she'll pick out what he wears. But Bill doesn't seem,
Whatever it gets her the cash, right? Yeah.
yeah, Bill
Yeah.
doesn't seem to care. So like, whatever. It's
Hey,
fun.
it's something that works out for everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I
But
get. Well,
anyway,
I can't wait for the Bill Belichick Scott Frost
I
showdown
was
this
just thinking
fall.
that. Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, a lot of interesting storylines coming in college football. Bill Belichick and Scott Frost wasn't necessarily one I had on my bingo card, but there we go.
Yeah, Rich Rod's back at West Virginia. I mean, everything. Everybody can go home again, I guess. Just leave your group of five. I shouldn't call West Virginia a group of five job. That's bad. But leave your job for a bigger job and fail, and eventually you'll come back. It's okay. So maybe like in 20 years, if Matt Rule doesn't do great here, he can go back to Temple or Baylor. Like that's just how it works. Not that I'm
Don't say
saying that,
that.
but
Don't say that. Oh man. I mean,
after
Matt
he's
Rule.
won a after he's won a national championship, and then like wants to like not recruit as hard, and he's like, I'll just go to a group of five job to like as like his like before pre-retirement job after he's won like
Hopefully, Frost Frost wins 0. Or hopefully, I just hope Frost doesn't win 1 before Rule does.
Yeah, that'd be painful. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I think Scott found a better spot. I think he'll have success again at UCF. I don't think they're going to go undefeated like they did before, but
Not with Alex Grinch as his defensive coordinator. Holy cow, that was a terrible hire. Alex Grinch, like, you're not going to go undefeated with Alex Grinch, so no worries there. Jesus, Alex, it's terrible, terrible defensive coordinator.
I do like our coordinators. So, although I know some fans aren't they're worried about John Butler, but I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's exactly the kind of defensive coordinator we needed.
Because Tony White was definitely worry free and made all sorts of fine adjustments to help us win several close games. So yeah. So, yeah.
No sarcasm detected there.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of the Illinois game, and quite honestly, the UCLA game. I know we got to end, but the UCLA game really made me mad. That was the game that probably honestly sealed the deal for Tony White. Like both sides were probably like, okay, we got to get you out. We got to get some new guys. Because Phil Snow was brought in shortly after. So
yeah, and the Holgerson too. I think that was the game where Rule was like, this, what we have going with this staff ain't working.
That was the game where everybody was just kind of like, what the hell, man? Like,
that was the what the hell moment. Yeah. But you look at Illinois, UCLA, Iowa, and Ohio State. I mean, could have been 10-2 last year. So when people like come at me for like, oh, this is crazy, it could be 10. We literally were 4 plays away from being 10-2 last year. Just gotta get it done. I'm sick of saying that though.
I don't know if we would have beat Ohio State just because I feel like Ohio State was playing down to us, and had we like taken the lead or something, they probably would have blown the doors off us if they really wanted to try.
I mean, true. I mean, once we got the lead, then they went right back down and scored. But I mean, still, it is what it is. But I do think that showed that this team can. I think it showed how it's like they'll play down to competition, but also play up to competition, and you got to find a way to be on the upside of that all the time.
I mean, it was easy for Ohio State. All you had to do was stop the screen, and you took away 95% of our game plan.
Yeah, 9,000. And why would you be running 9,000 screens against one of the best defenses? It just doesn't make sense.
I think the Ohio State game started to turn the wheels in motion for Satterfield to kind of go in Matt Rule's mind, and then the UCLA game kind of was just like the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and then the Iowa game I think was the icing on the cake for Ed Foley.
Yeah.
Just like losing another game because we couldn't make a field goal.
Anyway. Or even the Purdue game, I think, honestly, because wasn't the Purdue game where we had like 3 block kicks and a block punt?
Yeah, it seemed like a billion of them. So
I lost track. Yeah,
I lost track. Well, anyways, head of Foley's now not on the coaching staff. He's doing something else with the team. So good for you, Ed. I'm proud. I'm happy that you're still on the team, but I'm glad that you're not coaching.
Like,
for sure. Definitely a good guy. Like, seems like the guy you'd like to get a burger with, but just not coaching your special teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So anyways, all right, you guys, well, we'll wrap it up there. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll be back this weekend, I think, for one of our live chats. So we'll get those going again. So look out for that. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.